Hi, I'm Dr. Lori, and I'm answering your questions. This is Ask Dr. Lori, so I want to answer your questions. You put in questions in social media, on the comments right here, anywhere, send them into our website, whatever you want to do, but I want to answer those questions. They come from all over and they come from you, and they're to help you. I help buyers and sellers and help you do that. I always start with some questions in a bowl, and again, I'm the Ph.D. Antiques Appraiser. You know that I'm going to tell you the straight scoop, the inside story about these pieces. I always start with questions in a bowl, and this particular episode's bowl is in fact from the 1970s, and it is a structured bowl. What does that mean? Well, it's woven similar to a basket, and it's a basket slash bowl. The inside of it, of course, has a material as well, and then you have the decoration all the way around it to simulate, of course, fruits. Very popular in the 1970s, that kind of primitive look from, again, the colonial type of era. It's a nice piece, and it represents Native American types of pieces, but it's not a Native American bowl. Value on it, about $25, but it's really cute. Let's get started with your questions. So first question, as I said, these come from you, so here we go. I contacted an auction house, and the auction house says that my pieces are copies. They really are not, Dr. Lori. My pieces are not copies. I know that for a fact. The auction house says that my pieces aren't worth that much and they don't want to auction them off. I'm going to sell them myself. I'm not going to worry about that. I just want to be accurate in my listings. Can you help me? Why won't they sell them? Okay. There are a couple things that are going on with auction houses, all right? So it's really pretty simple. There are many reasons why they may not want to actually sell your pieces. If, for example, they believe your pieces are not authentic, that's one. That's oftentimes the reason, and it's oftentimes an excuse. And people say, well, wow, I can't believe she said that. Well, you can believe I said that because this is years and years and years of expertise and years and years and years of, again, dealing in this particular field, dealing with these kinds of questions. Another reason why an auction house may not want to sell your object, it might be that they would prefer to sell something that has a higher value that they can make more money off of. That might be a reason. It might also be a reason, and here's an example, it might also be a reason where they are saying, we're not taking any more of that type of object anymore. Sometimes that's the reason. It's very unusual that they'll tell you that something is not valuable, right, or is not. They'll tell you that something is not valuable, or they'll tell you that something is not authentic as their excuse. They're going to believe it's not authentic. If they don't believe it's authentic, then they're not going to sell it. But I have had many pieces in my career of helping clients where the piece was authenticated and an auction house still didn't want to actually sell it for whatever reason. Andy Warhol's I had this happen with. I've had this happen with colonial American furniture, with major auction houses. Had this happen with many times when auction houses decide not to do that. Here's some of the things some of the other reasons that they don't want to do that. I had one example, for instance, when a piece of furniture was going to be sold through an auction house, and they said, we don't sell furniture anymore. And right on the web page, there was a piece of furniture that they were selling. Pretty typical. So remember, when it comes to auction houses, you have to know these types of things. The other thing about auction houses, a lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them don't like people who are living, because people who are living could give them more of a problem. They like to deal with estates. The person is gone, the person has passed away, and it's easier for them to liquidate their stuff because they're not going to be somebody there saying, oh my gosh, you sold the quilt and you didn't sell it high enough. You know, that tends to happen too. In this particular case, it's a good idea for you to sell it yourself. It's a good idea for you to list it yourself. Make sure that you know what you have, it's properly identified, and that you know the appraised value, and go from there. So remember, there are lots of reasons why. Sometimes an auction house also has to make enough money, right? They have a particular ceiling, so sometimes that's their excuse too. Let's go to the next question. Thanks, good question. Hi, Dr. Lori. What's the difference between a lithograph and a print? Well, there's no difference between a lithograph and a print. A lithograph is a print. So a lithograph or lithography is one of the print making processes. So when you're thinking about prints, I want you to think about that there are many different types of prints, and lithography or lithographs is one of the types of prints, along with etchings, engravings, serigraphs, silk screens, monotints, all different types of pieces. So remember, there's no difference between a lithograph and a print. A lithograph is a print. Thanks. What's next? Let's see. Lots of questions, lots of questions, lots of people asking questions, and they're good questions. You know, you're smart. You're asking some good questions that are going to help you to buy low and sell high, and to sell high when you've bought low. So that's good. I'd like to know what makes a good old photograph valuable. Okay, I bought one at Goodwill because I found it interesting. All right, and I'm not looking for an appraisal, just info on what to look for when buying. Okay, so you don't want an appraisal, that's fine. So you don't want to know a correct identification, and you don't want to know what the market and a market analysis, right? So if you don't want to know those things, you probably don't have enough information to correctly market your object or to buy a valuable old photograph. Appraisals are about information, and the information is quite important. So I want you to remember that. So everyone's going, I don't need an appraisal, I don't need an appraisal. Maybe you don't need an appraisal on that particular object, but you do need that appraisal education. You need that background about it. So what makes a photograph look good? Here's a couple of things. Old photographs that are valuable, a couple of things you want to look for. Particular artists. Certain artists' works are more valuable than others. And that's true in anything, right? That's true in interior design, that's true in painting, that's true in watercolor, sculpture, photographs. Subject matter. Certain subjects are more popular than other subjects. Type of photographs. So types of photographs like gelatin silver prints or black and white photographs, color photographs. So an example, if you have a gelatin silver print or a black and white photograph by Ansel Adams, it's going to be more valuable than a black and white photograph by another artist, possibly. If you're looking at color photographs, you should be looking at the best of the best, who might be arguably Eliot Porter, photographers like him. So when you're looking at particular types of photographs, you want to look about what kind of material they're working in, right? Or are you looking at daguerreotypes? Are you looking at old photographs that go all the way back to like tin types and Ambrose types and those kinds of things. So you want to think about all those types. Photogravures, like the Curtis photogravures of the North American Indian. Are those the photographs you're talking about? They're all different types of photographs. They go all the way back to the late 1830s, the history of photography, and photographs based on different types will, of course, be more or less valuable. More prominent the artist, the more valuable the photograph. Condition is always going to be important, and subject matter. So if you have a portrait by Ansel Adams, say, who's best known for landscape images of Yosemite, guess what? You should be buying the landscape image of Yosemite. That one would be more valuable. I hope that answers your questions about photographs. Remember, there's lots to know about photography and all of the arts. Okay, next question. Hi, Dr. Lori. This is long, but I'm gonna make it shorter. So I contacted an antique clock dealer after I sent several photos to him of a grandfather clock that I had. He made me an offer. Okay. So he made me an offer, and this is an offer. We'll say the offer was $5,000, and I would pay the delivery charges. Okay, right there, I'm done with this guy. So you want to buy it, but now you want me to pay delivery charges. All right. I wouldn't want to be bothered with this person. And I wouldn't want to be bothered with this person because they go, well, I have to get it to my shop, so I have to buy it. It's hard for me. Look, you already made a lower than market value offer, because if you didn't, you don't know what you're doing when you're actually dealing in this particular in antique clocks. So you already made a low offer. Now you want the client now to also pay for the delivery. I don't think that's really fair. So that's just my opinion. Everybody who does the dealer is going to get mad at me, but that's what I think. Because it has to get to you so you can then market it to somebody else who's going to buy it from you. Okay, so that's my first problem with this. I had gotten an offer about 10 years ago from a collector to buy the clock, and that particular collector wanted to give me $65,000 for the clock. But I decided that I didn't want to sell it at that time. So I found that while he offered me only a little bit less, I wanted to, in fact, contact a local appraiser who agreed to give me a verbal appraisal. Okay. Your first mistake was you should have sent me a picture of the piece, because I would have given you an honest, accurate appraisal. But you got somebody locally, probably wanted them to come in and look at the clock and see if it had been serviced. Okay, all good. So I provided the appraiser with, of course, information and photos. And somehow the appraiser now has evolved our relationship with this appraiser has evolved into him acting as my broker and him finding me an actual buyer for the clock. He has a broker fee, of 25%. He's still not giving me an appraised value. All right, now right here you got to stop. You got to stop. You have to stop right here because you didn't ask him to become a broker. You asked him for an appraisal. You asked him to come out to your house and tell you, for money, you paid him to come to your house and tell you how much the piece is worth. So you could make a decision between, do I sell it to a collector? Is the dealer who made me an offer and then wants me to pay delivery charges, is that a good deal? Or should I do something else and market it some other way? Okay, so now the appraiser is acting as something other than an appraiser, and you still don't have a current appraised value for it. This is where you get all into trouble. Okay, so I'm continuing. So this happens. Now he wants 25% of the amount that he's going to sell it for, and he's going to sell it. So for 25% more on top of whatever he sells it for, he wants basically to get that from you. So now you're going to be out the clock, and of course you're going to be out 25% to this person who may or may not be a good broker, but he's supposed to be an appraiser. So now you have people working in different things. You have somebody who gave you a purchase offer, not an appraisal. That was the first guy. And now you gave another person who is now saying, I want 25% off the top because I'm going to find you the buyer. All right. And you still don't know how much money you're dealing with. Are you following me? All right. I'm a little concerned that there is now a conflict of interest with the appraiser, and I'm feeling taken advantage of. How can you help me, Dr. Lori? Okay. Well, you feel taken advantage of because you asked for one service and you're getting another. And you didn't get the other service yet either because that person who's an appraiser slash buyer slash broker is now acting as three different things. So you want to be aware of that. He's probably coming out and acting as an appraiser, in my opinion, because he wants to scope out this clock and see whether or not this clock is worthy of him making you an offer for it as well. And then he's going to resell it. Both of those offers are going to be low offers. But again, you might have a hard time selling this clock yourself. So maybe you do want to engage in a broker, but that person should only be a broker. They shouldn't say, oh, I'm an appraiser, and then I'm going to broker things as well. That's my opinion. I think that's a big conflict of interest, and it usually does not benefit well for people like the client, like you. So it's a good thing that you asked me this question, because this question is one that comes up a lot. It's my opinion that appraisers should be appraisers, brokers should be brokers, and anybody who's getting paid to appraise the object should go in and appraise the object and not confuse you with convoluted things like, oh, I'm going to broker it for you now and I want 25% of what is yours, which is the value of the clock. Thanks for your question. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Lori. I've been watching all your videos. I'm really hooked. Thank you very much. But one thing that you didn't explain is how you can tell how many carats of gold is around a plate. Does it depend on the maker? Okay. I purchased some plates and they're gold rimmed. I'm just curious about how you would be able to tell how many carats they are. Well, a lot of these plates actually say 22 carat right on the bottom. So you've got a ceramic plate, and then you've got, the maker's mark, and you've got other elements, and then it says 22 carat or 24 carat, and they tell you right on it. So some of them are gold leaf, right? The earlier ones tend to be actually painted on gold leaf, and some of them are, in fact, of a carat weight. So it will depend on the maker, yes, and it will depend on the time period, because in different time periods, plates are actually enhanced with some gold or some platinum or some silver around the rim. It just depends. It was very popular in the 1950s for these pieces to have that gilding around it. And earlier plates, which are hand painted, the early part of the 1900s, for example, those oftentimes don't have as high quality carat weight when you see them. So you have to know your plates. And I do a lot of videos about China, of course, and I could teach you about how to identify the more valuable plates. Some of them have the gold on it, some of them don't. But oftentimes it's very easy. Just turn over the plate and look at the bottom. I tell people about looking at the bottom a lot. It reminds me of an event when I was, of course, doing one of my big events on tour at the Dr. Lori's Antique Appraisal Comedy Tour. Basically, I would tell people, look at the bottom and see what kind of quality the ceramic is. Oftentimes, if it's good quality ceramic, you're also going to have a good quality rimming, right? That gold banding around the actual rim. So, good question. What's next? How can I do better in researching and learning from your videos, your websites, your emails, Dr. Lori? I really want to get the most out of it. Okay, well, that's very nice. I can tell you what I used to tell my university students. I used to say this almost every week when I taught at State University of New York, at Penn State, when I taught at the Yale Art Gallery. Read. Take the time to read. Don't just skim something like an email. Take the time to read. The other thing I would tell my students, and what I'm trying to tell you guys, trying not to sound too much like a schoolmarm, here's what I'm going to tell you. You know what? Don't make assumptions. You assume things. Oh, I assume that this is happening. I assume that that's happening. Oh, well, Dr. Lori, you wrote this back to me in an email, but I assumed something else. Who told you that? You know, I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. I'm going to tell you the instructions. You need to read it. And people will say, well, I didn't know I had to send 3 pictures. I thought I could only send 1. I need 3 pictures. Oh, you really need, dimensions? I need dimensions. How big is it? All of this stuff matters. Don't make assumptions. That's how you'll learn the most. And if you have questions, God love you, ask the questions. I'll answer you. I'll tell you, and I'll tell you straight. I'll tell you what I think. Don't think any question is a bad question. I'll answer all of them. So the thing I want you to do is don't make an assumption. So I have folks who are sending me information all the time and they go off on some tangent. Oh, I thought this was, I thought you meant that, Dr. Lori. I didn't write that. Read and don't make assumptions. It will help. It really will. That's how you can learn the most. Let's see, next question. I went to Goodwill and there was a complete china set there. They priced them individually, all the pieces in the complete china set. I asked how much for the whole set. They said that they'd have to add up all the pieces and the prices on all the pieces and pay the total. So they wouldn't give me a break, so I left. Oh, so this person got mad. Okay. I went back about a month later and only half of the pieces in the same china set were sold. It made me mad that they wouldn't deal with me, and I thought it was stupid on their part not to sell it all to me at once. This is very simple, a bird in the hand. A bird in the hand. They should have added it up if they wanted to add it up, give you a price. If you wanted to accept the price, you should have accepted the price, done it right then, because now there's a partial set, and a partial set decreases value. So they would have been better served to have gotten all of the pieces sold rather than have somebody come into, of course, the thrift stop and just pick through them, right? And you would have been better served if, in fact, you were able to buy it all at once. You should have added up the pieces and got the number. So the total number was, I don't know, $200, say that's what it was. And if you didn't like that number, then you could have said to them, hey, will you give me a deal? Because I'm buying the whole set. So I think that the problem with this particular thing is that the people who are working there are probably thinking, well, you know what does it matter? You add them all up. We don't care if we get any more because they don't get any more. They don't get a commission for selling that particular whole set. They don't really care. What the problem is now the set has been basically violated or altered. You only have certain pieces. And now it's going to sit there because it's been quote unquote picked over. My mother was big about picked over, right? She hated it when something was picked over. That idea that the best things would be taken out, right? And then leaving all the junk for somebody else. And that's what's happened to this particular set. I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm very happy that you asked, because why not? It doesn't hurt to ask and say, hey, can I buy the whole set? Could you price the whole set? In another environment, somebody else might have said, yeah, I'm going to price the whole set and I'm going to price it a little bit lower and give you that deal so they can move all that inventory. This might have been different if you were in a consignment shop, and the outlet and the outcome might have been different also if you were in a antique dealership. But in a thrift store, maybe that was the reason why they didn't want to sort of make a deal. So sorry about that, but that's the real deal. Let's see, what else have we got? I was wondering if places like thrift stores remove the expensive items and sell them on eBay or online elsewhere. This makes me angry since they get everything for free. Okay, well, there's 2 things happening here. First of all, do they really get everything for free? Well, they have to run the shop, they have to have the place open, they have to pay the employees, they have to do all of that. So while the donations come in, right, and they're not paying for the inventory, and auction houses don't pay for the inventory either, right? So while they're coming in and getting it that way, and you're thinking, oh, well, they get it for free, they do have to invest money to, of course, make that transaction happen. The other thing that's happening with respect to this is, in fact, you're saying here, you're wondering if they remove the expensive items. A lot of the best items, if of course the staff can recognize them, and we know from some of my other videos that they can't always recognize what's valuable, but they take those pieces that they think might sell better online and they put them on their own online auction sites, right? So you know that Goodwill, of course, has an online auction site, and many of the others do as well, or they decide that they're going to put them on another site like an eBay or such. So yes, they do that. So that's a good question. If you didn't know that they do that, yes, they do. And a lot of pieces, some wonderful pieces, are sold through their sites too. I'm going to focus on and show you answering these questions and also show you where these particular pieces are so you can identify them, so you can get them when you're physically in the thrift store. Okay, another questions. Dr. Lori, we know that estate sales takes 3 days on average. Well, that's kind of true. Yeah, they take like a weekend, you do the estate sale sort of thing. When is the best day to find a true bargain? So is there a best day to find a true bargain? Well, are you watching my videos? Treasures are found every day of the week. It doesn't have to necessarily be the first day or the last day, right? I always tell people, you know, you're thinking about getting these bargains and finding these treasures, and you're thinking, ooh, there's only one good time to do that. There's not only one good time to find a true bargain, right? There's all different times is when they will actually see the bargain. So you might have a bargain and you might find one on the first day, right, when everybody walks in, right? You might find one at the end when they're just like, oh, we forgot about that thing in the garage and we just found it. That could happen. So it all depends. But in terms of it, you know, when you're asking, you know, is there a special item or a special time? Is there a time you go on to ask, is there a time you can ask for discounts at an estate sale? Well, oftentimes at the beginning, discounts are kind of not the best idea. People will say, oh, well, I can't get a discount. It just opened. I want to wait and see if I can get more buyers through here, right? I say ask for a discount no matter what. Be polite. Remember to have cash. If they say no, it's not their fault. They're trying to, of course, do something else. And they don't have to entertain your of course, discount request. They could say, no, I don't want to have a discount. So it just all depends on the estate sale and how the estate sale is actually working. Remember also that when you're at an estate sale, that it's a good idea for you to, of course, look around the estate sale, right? It's a good idea also for you to think about particular items and try to zero in on particular categories of items. But when it comes to estate sales, I want you to remember that there's not the best time. I've been showing you that anytime, anywhere, if you know what to look for and you know how to identify it with my help, you can find those treasures. So it's not like the best thing is always going to be there at the end or at the beginning of an estate sale. Estate sales also, remember, are relating to that particular area. So you're going to see that certain things that are popular in a particular region or area are going to be best for the estate sale. If you have questions, I want to answer them for you. And of course, there's all different kinds of questions that I field here. Everything from questions about medium of art or how pieces are sold or how pieces are bought, all types of things. So remember, get your questions, ask them anywhere on social media, whether it's on Facebook or right here in the comments or with a question to my, of course, website. I just had a woman today on a video call said to me, I have so many questions, Dr. Lori, I don't know where to ask them. You can ask them right here. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Dr. Lori, and I'll field your questions again. Thanks for watching.